Now 6 p.m. Today is June 22nd, 2021. I call the Vacaville City Council meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Council Agency Authority Member Stockton.
Here.
Council Agency Authority Member Ritchie.
Here.
Council Agency Authority Member Silva.
Here.
Council Agency Authority Member Roberts.
Here.
Council Agency Authority Member Wiley.
Here.
Vice Mayor, Vice Chair Sullivan.
Here.
Mayor, Chair Roulette.
I am here. If you would please stand with me for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we are going to go to closed session, but before we go to closed session, I want to see if there's any callers on the line that want to talk about our closed session. Crystal, is there anybody there?
I see no hands.
Okay, then I am going to recess to closed session, and we will be back to reconvene at 7 p.m. for our regular session for the City Council. Thank you. believe all the council members are back from closed session. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I guess I see 5, 6, 7. Okay. We're going to reconvene, and I have nothing to report. We have no reportable actions from our closed session. So with that, we'll move to item 4, approval of the agenda. Mr. City Manager, do we have any additions to the agenda?
No, there are not, sir.
I'll entertain motion.
I move approval.
Thank you.
So about second.
All right, roll call, please.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Yes. Item 5, approval of the minutes. Approve the minutes for the regular and special called meeting. Can I have a motion?
So about motion.
Thank you. I'll second. Can I have roll call, please?
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sullivan,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Yes. Now we'll move on to item 6A. We have the 2021 National Parks and Recreation Proclamation. I believe Carrie Walker is going to introduce that.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Tonight we have Recreation Supervisors Elizabeth Crescente, Tiffany Rishi Western, and Julia Madison presenting on July as National Parks and Recreation Month.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Roulette. This is Elizabeth Crescente. Thank you, Director Walker. I am currently stationed at the Three Oaks Community Center, and we are very excited to celebrate July as National Parks and Recreation Month, because last year at this time, there wasn't a whole lot going on. So one of the program areas that I oversee that is included on this calendar for some activities we're doing during the month of July is Aquatics. And it really just wouldn't be summer without a little fun in the water. So a few things listed. We have lap swim listed on Friday, July 2nd, but we actually do lap swim every day of the week. So I definitely encourage you to come down and maybe do that. Or you can enjoy one of our new aquaboard fitness classes. We do have that listed on Saturday, July 24th. It is actually held every Saturday from 10 to 11 a.m. and a really great way to get your fitness on and be out in the pool as well. And then the other big thing that we are doing this summer, we are back to open swim, which is what we are very known for. So I'm very excited to report that starting July 1st, we will be moving towards a more normal program structure for open swim, which means we will be opening up the water slides, all of the pools will be operational, and we are ready to have some fun. So I hope you will come down and join us. And I am going to pass the baton to Supervisor Tiffany Richi Western to talk a little bit more about our special events coming up.
Thank you, Elizabeth, and good evening, council members. My name is Tiffany Richi Western. I am the Recreation Supervisor. I am currently at Ulatis Community Center, and I oversee the Therapeutic Recreation Program, the ADA accommodations for our department, preschool, early childhood education, and the gymnastics programming. After missing out on last summer, we're very excited for the return of both the July 4th celebration and as well the Creek Walk concert series. On July 4th, the gates will open at 5 p.m. at Andrews Park, with the first concert starting at 6:30. Fireworks will follow at dusk. The Creek Walk concert series continues every Friday after that from July 9th to August 27th. And this year, it's going to be completely free. For the band lineup and additional information, you can check out our website for the most up-to-date information. And now I will pass it to Julia.
Thank you, Tiffany. My name is Julia Madison. I'm the Recreation Supervisor at the McBride Center, and I want to invite everyone to enjoy some of our outdoor spaces during the month of July. Hike Tower Road Trail, enjoy a picnic in your neighborhood park, or come check out the new Outdoor Explorer Quest at Lagoon Valley Park. We're very excited to partner with SCOE, the Solano County Office of Education, on this new outdoor family adventure. The Solano Outdoor Explorer Quest at Lagoon Valley is a treasure hunt similar to geocaching, offering explorers the adventure of finding hidden QR codes or quest caches. Each quest cache leads to a discovery of native plants and animals living in the area, and videos, as well as a secret quest cache log to record your discoveries. The quest is a great opportunity for students to get outside with their families, do some exploring, learn new things, and connect with nature and the outdoors. For more information, you can visit solanocoe.net/quest for all of the details. We hope that everyone is able to get out and enjoy some of Vacaville's recreation activities and open spaces in July. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you.
That was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. We're all very excited that we're back open and back running around and making sure that everybody's having a safe and healthy time out there in Vacaville. I do have a proclamation for the Park and Recreation Department. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of the communities throughout this country, including the city of Vacaville. And whereas the park and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And where parks and recreation programs increase the community's economic prosperity through increased property values, extension of local tax base, increased tourism, and the attraction and retention of businesses and crime reduction, I now therefore being resolved, I, Ron Roulette, Mayor, on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, proclaim July as recognized as Parks and Recreation Month and commend the City Parks and Recreation Department along with the Commission for all the work they do to ensure our parks and recreation services that support this healthy and active community. So thank you very much. We will move on to our next proclamation, which would be item 6B. Mr. City Manager, did you want to start that?
Certainly, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great honor, I think, for this next item. We are saying goodbye to our Assistant City Manager, Don Leonardini, after 15 years of service for the city. She has been a great asset to this organization, and we are all very grateful for her time of service here. And I will acknowledge that bringing her into the city manager's office last year to help us get through the pandemic was a great benefit for the organization. And I know that through all the years that she's been here, with all the successful negotiations with all of our employees, they've got to know her very well. And we all recognize that she has done a lot of great things for us, and she will be missed. And so with that, we did provide you with the proclamation for honoring her for her retirement. And so I'll turn it back to you, sir.
Thank you very much. And it's bittersweet. We don't want to see her go, but she definitely deserves her retirement. We've asked her and begged her to stay multiple times, and she's done that for us. But it is time for her to go and move on and do things that she has worked so very hard to get to retirement. And I would like to read this proclamation. So whereas we are here today to express special recognition to Dawn Leonardini and to honor her for her distinguished 15-year career with the city of Vacaville. Dawn began her career on July 10th, 2006 as the Director of Human Resources. She was promoted to the Director of Administrative Services on June 1st, 2015. Dawn negotiated over 50 successor agreements between 2006 and 2019. She established the Flex Schedule Initiative, which began on January 1st, 2020. She took her final promotion to the City Manager Department as an Assistant City Manager on May 1st, 2020, and made a vast departmental improvements. Dawn has worked constantly for the betterment and work processes through the several departments with her natural born capacity to recognize in return, making heavy workloads more manageable and effective for city personnel. The City of Vacaville expresses its sincere appreciation to Dawn for her dedication and outstanding performance with her duties during her tenure. And this proclamation will be presented to Dawn to serve as a reminder that although she is retiring, she will always be remembered as a valued employee dedicated to her position, city personnel, and the community. Now, therefore, being resolved, I, Ron Roulette, Mayor of the City of Vacaville, on behalf of the Vacaville City Council, do hereby present this proclamation to Dawn Lenardini as a testimonial to the faithful and dedicated services which she has performed for the past 15 years, with our best wishes for continued success and happiness in your future. Thank you very much, Dawn. And Dawn, I'll give you an opportunity to say something if you wish.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, and Aaron. It's been an honor to actually work here for the city. I can't believe 15 years has flown by. It's going to be hard to leave. I work with so many wonderful people, and I truly have had an amazing career here. And I just want to thank the council for giving me an opportunity to serve Vacaville. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move on to item 7, the consent calendar. Is there anyone on the council that would like to pull any item off the consent calendar tonight? I do see Councilmember Roy Stockton's hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to pull agenda or consent calendar item A. I haven't gotten any updates with the concerns that I had the last time it was brought to council, so I'd like to pull that.
Okay, 7A will be pulled. Vice Mayor Sullivan.
2C as well, please.
Which one was that? I'm sorry.
C, please.
Okay, thank you. 7C. And I see no other hands. I'll open it up to the public if they would like to pull any item off. I see no hands up, so I'll bring it back and I'll ask for a motion on 7B, 7D, E, F, G, H. Can I have a motion?
Mark Silva, motion approved.
Thank you. Can I have a second? All right, great. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. Okay, we'll start with 7A and I'll call upon Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, there was a lengthy discussion regarding bringing cannabis to Vacaville. I brought up some concerns, some with equity, some with kind of approving this before we have a plan to address some of these issues. I haven't heard any updates regarding those concerns, so I can't support consent calendar item A. So I wanted to pull it.
Okay, thank you. We'll open it up to public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment, bring it back, and I do have Councilmember Silva's hand up.
Thank you. So I do realize that we're talking about possibly 2 separate issues, where this one's more focused on our land use with the suggested proposal. To my colleague, Councilmember Stockton's comments from the last meeting, I think one thing that I've been looking into is some type of community benefit program that a lot of other cities have. So if we're talking about how we address the inequities or some of the other issues that are brought up, to me personally, I think that's one way that we can actually find a way to further enhance the benefits to different programs. So City Manager Aaron, when this comes back up on a future agenda, when we talk about regulations, is that going to be something that we can add into there to discuss and possibly maybe have as a separate study session?
Well, we can certainly, when we come back with the follow-up resolution that details, all the particulars, that can certainly be an item for discussion. And what we can do is, provide the council with, some considerations for industry best practices. And if there's new ideas that the council would like to see, we can certainly hear your testimony and input from the community on that subject as well.
And do we have a timeline on that?
No, we're still working with our team on when we bring that back. But I will try to get the council an update by the next meeting with my city manager comments.
Great. All right, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment back really quickly to Councilmember Stockton. Councilmember Stockton, I couldn't share this because of Brown Act restrictions, but we did have a meeting last week with staff, a couple council members and myself, and a few planning commissioners, one in particular who I think shares very similar sets of concerns on the equity issue. Had a really good discussion with some of the economic development staff, and they gave us some suggestions for future regulation that sort of confirm what Mike just said. So I just wanted you to know, Councilmember Stockton, that I totally appreciate your concerns, and I share similar concerns, at least on that topic. And we have been running some of those down with staff. And again, because of the Brown Act stuff, I just couldn't share directly, but I want you to know that that didn't go in one year, out the other. Thanks.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for acknowledging and sharing the concerns that we have. I'm glad that there is a conversation about it. I want to make sure that that's not an afterthought. And I felt like those things should have been ironed out before we moved forward with this. So I'd like to thank my colleagues for also seeing the importance of making sure that those issues are covered. And with that, I'll motion.
Oh, go ahead.
Mrs. Stockton.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote for item 7A?
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
No.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. We'll move to item 7C, and I believe Vice Mayor Sullivan pulled this one. So Vice Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Do we have Groom on the line this evening?
Yes, he is available.
A quick question for you, Grim. I know this particular zone that we're going to approve, we're accepting the public improvement plan for the phase 2 section. I know we've been working for probably at least 2 months. I know you're involved, the city attorney's involved, the city manager's involved on some landscaping format changes. There were some concerns from quite a few residents within this particular public improvements plan, and there were some pretty significant adjustments that we were trying to make or get made on behalf of those residents or in partnership with those residents. My first question, I guess, is do we need to approve this tonight while that is still pending? And if we do, will that impact those negotiations or that work at all? I guess my concern is if we approve this tonight and all of a sudden we need some leverage or we need some ability to maybe make changes that maybe the developer's not interested in making, although I feel they're very amenable. Does it make sense to hold on approving this? Or do you believe this wouldn't be an issue either way based on the talks that you're in with the developer?
Yeah. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members, Public Works Director. Vice Mayor, thank you for that question. In fact, just today, I exchanged some emails with the developer, and they are doing some pricing investigations and timing on this particular improvement that we've asked them to look into. So personally, I don't see any impediment to approving this these public improvements. We are dealing in good faith, and they have shown interest in working with us. So I don't think by council approving this item, that we will be compromising the proposed safety enhancements at the intersection of Whispering Ridge and McMurtry Lane. If that answers the
That does. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'll motion to approve, Mayor.
Okay, let me open up to public first, but I'll bring it back to you, Vice Mayor. I'll open it up to public comment for item C, 7C. I see no hands, and I'll close public comment. I'll bring it back to Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move it.
Stockton on second.
Perfect, thank you. Can we have roll call for item 7C, please?
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan,
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton,
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
Aye. Okay, so we will now move to item 8. This is business from floor. This is time to address the council with issues that are not on the agenda that are within the council subject matter jurisdiction. And before we start, I just prepared a quick statement, and it's something that's been bothering me, so I'd just like to read this. There's been a level of false assumptions, name calling, divisive behavior coming from some people here in the community and here at our council meetings, and it's embarrassing. It is misinformed and I believe deliberately intended to disrupt our ability as a city to conduct business and do the important things of improving the lives of the people that live here in Vacaville. While I understand that everyone has freedom to their opinion, I urge you to seek more productive ways of being the change that we all seek in this world. We hear you and we are acting within our power to make change and improve transparency. It is not a result of how loud you yell, the foul language that you use, or the political threats that you make. The division within the city has grown substantially over the past year. The rift is growing, and it is a disservice to everyone here in Vacaville. To those who believe that elected officials deserve to be ridiculed or even be recalled because an individual doesn't agree with you completely is missing the point of democracy. This city council has differing opinions, but we're all doing our best to serve the people within our ability as council members. And if the people aren't happy with our actions, they have the opportunity every 4 years to correct our path and set a new one. This current council is made up of ethical humans who care deeply about this city. And I would like to request the public remember that and try to work with us and stop trying to draw lines in the sand based on false assumptions and rumors. We are here to serve you, so please allow space for us to work and make that occur. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll start with Edward Russell.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
So I would like to announce as the representation for the Black Community District, proud to announce that we just celebrated our first Juneteenth celebration festival here in Vacaville, never seen before. The great thing about it was we didn't pay no permits, we didn't give the city not a nickel. Why should we give money to the oppressor when they're not doing anything for us? And why should we pay for land that is stolen? And we'll do it again. We didn't invite Tommy's because Tommy's will put rat poison in the pumpkin pie and leave without eating. We didn't invite people that support terrorist groups because they'll be there trying to infiltrate and make things what they're not. We got a great time. We ate well. We laughed. We didn't even fight. So let that sink in. Before I get out of here, I want to read something because I think white Americans have this delusion that slavery was physical or just physical and overlook the mental anguish and dehumanization of it. So from post-traumatic slave syndrome, and I quote, imagine a mother with a black mother, I should say, with a 10 or 12-year-old. Like any good mother, she would want to protect her children from harm. Because she is enslaved, her children are also slaves, and she must come to grips with the fact that she is incapable of defending them against assaults from white Americans and overseers. This mother knows there will be a day when white men will demand to have access to her daughters. And these men and boys will use the fragile young body to satisfy their sexual cravings. That day marks the initiation of manhood to white American boys. The mother no doubt anguishes over the fact that she hopes to lessen the tragic event by at least acquainting her innocent child with the particulars of being raped. Tries to help her little girl understand what will happen, why it's going to happen. She endeavors to explain how it will feel, how her vagina will tear, burn, and bleed. She attempts to tell how to best prepare and survive the ordeal. She tells her to lie still, not resist, and try to bear the pain. But there's no limits what she can tell her child to prepare her for. She cannot tell her often how they will come, how long they will last, or how many there will be. This mother cannot protect her child, nor can the father, who looks on powerless, defeated, and emasculated. Tell me about your systemic racism. Tell me about your freedom. Tell me about your nonchalant. Tell me about your privilege. So the next time you see a Black boy walking around Vacaville with a white girl on his arm, think about the possibilities. What's he doing to your white American teenage daughters? Have a great evening.
Next caller, please. I see no other hands up. I'll close public comment. We'll move to item 9A.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. This first public hearing before you is an item that has been presented to the council previously. It is a resolution denying the application for a city determination of a public convenience or necessity permit for alcoholic beverage sales at 2501 Nut Tree Road. Saul Uribe, our planning technician, will be making a brief presentation.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the Vacaville City Council. So we'll be going over the Nut Tree Footmark project, as the City Manager mentioned. This is the second hearing for this item. If we can go to the next slide, please. This is an application for a city determination of public convenience or necessity to sell alcoholic beverages for off-site consumption. This is for a Type 21 license that would allow the sales of beer, wine, and distilled spirits. The application also includes a minor modification request to convert the office space into a retail use. Can we go to the next slide, please? Project summary, as I've mentioned, this project includes a request for a Type 21 liquor license. This license would allow the applicant to sell distilled spirits, beer, and wine products for off-site consumption. The project site is located in the neighborhood commercial zoning district. They are proposing to open up the store on an existing 2,095 square foot tenant space. Site plan includes all the required parking and access for the proposed use, and the proposed hours of operations have been changed from originally proposed 6 to 2 a.m. to now 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is the proposed project site. Project site is located at the southwest corner of Alamo Drive and Nut Tree Road. The site is located in the neighborhood commercial zoning district and surrounded by commercial office with a professional office overlay, some commercial office, and some more neighborhood commercial. Can we go to the next slide, please? Just to provide a little bit of background, we held the first public hearing for this item on February 23rd. At that hearing, staff recommended denial of the PCN because the PCN criteria is not met. At the time, City Council voted 3-3 for denial and then 3-3 for approval. As a resolution, then City Council directed staff and the applicant to return with a revised business plan and also directed planning staff to prepare possible conditions of approval that could be issued for the project, and to prepare findings of approval for the consideration for approval of the project as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? Staff worked with the applicant in preparing conditions of approval, and we did prepare some conditions that are attached to your report. Some of the conditions of approval included hours of operations, which staff recommended that the store be closed at midnight. The applicant has agreed with this condition. Staff also prepared a condition requiring the floor plan of the store to be reconfigured to remove some of the coolers and other pieces of furniture that were going to be blocking the existing windows, and the floor plan has been changed. The new proposed floor plan removes all of those obstructions out of the way, allowing for additional visibility and light into the tenant space. We also prepared some conditions to limit the amount of outdoor storage. Some of the stores usually have ice coolers, propane tanks, recycling outside, so we limit that as well. Police also prepare conditions. One of the conditions that they've prepared says that they're recommending that no liquor, hard liquor, is stored on the sales floor, and that the hard liquor is stored behind the register and only accessible to the employees. The applicant has not agreed to this condition. Some of the other conditions that police prepared included security measures and video surveillance, and the applicant does agree to those conditions. Also, staff feels that it will be good to propose some conditions to ABC if the PCN is approved. This ABC conditions are not enforceable by the city. We cannot impose those conditions, so we're only recommending to ABC for them to adopt these conditions, but ABC has not agreed, nor they are obligated to enforce these conditions. Some of these conditions include a request to not allow any single bottles of beer or personal size hard liquor sales at the store. We also recommend that the hours of operation are limited to the midnight closing hours. Can we go to the next slide, please? We've also prepared a condition, a proposed condition to ABC. Again, this is a condition that the city cannot impose on the ABC license. And this is a condition that would ask ABC to revoke the license if there's crime-related problems with the store. We've modified the conditions slightly from what was included on your report. And that's why we've included the revised condition here on the presentation. So the condition reads as follows, that if any 3 documented alcohol-related incidents as verified by the police chief in a 3-year period starting from the first occurrence shall be grounds for the city to request for the revocation of the Type 21 license. The severity of the incident shall be considered by the city for the purpose of determining whether such incidents shall be grounds for the revocation of the license, and activities which shall constitute an incident include but are not limited to the sale of alcohol to minors, on-site consumption of alcohol, alcohol-related crimes such as adults purchasing alcohol for minors, shoplifting of alcohol. And then if there's a failure to comply with these conditions of approval, that we would request that ABC revoke the Type 21 license. Can we go to the next slide, please? As previously stated, staff believes that this proposal does not meet the PCN criteria. We've included both findings for approval and findings for denial as we originally presented to City Council on the first public hearing for this item. Next slide, please. In conclusion, the Community Development Department has determined that there is no evidence to support the approval of the PCN. Staff recommends that the PCN application be denied because the project fails to meet the criteria for approval. If the City Council does decide to approve the application, staff recommends that the application be approved, subject to the proposed conditions of approval. Next slide, please. With that, I conclude my presentation and introduce two different motions. Motion A would be to adopt the resolution, A and deny the application for the city determination of public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverage sales and a minor modification for the proposed nut-free food mart at 2501 Nut-Tree Road, Suite B, or adopt Resolution B and approve the application for the city determination of public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverage sales and minor modification for the proposed Nut-Tree Food Mart at 2501 Nut-Tree Road, Suite B, and direct staff to request the Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control to include the proposed conditions to the Type 21 liquor license as outlined in this presentation.
Great, thank you. I'll open it up to public comment.
Blake, I'll open your mic.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. This is Mike Ayaz. I'm the representative for the applicant. First, I just want to assure you guys can hear me.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. As you can see, we've made strides to agree to conditions that are reasonably attainable by the applicant, including the complete reconfiguration of the store as requested by the city. You know, we've had some issues with this in terms of how it's been dealt with, but I think the thing that I want to drive home today is the fact that we've done almost everything that was asked from us. We are not in agreement with a few conditions, but the bulk of the conditions, 99% of the conditions, we're okay with. The one condition that we would like removed is the availability of distilled spirits on the floor. And that's because if you remember from the original plan, there was quite a large counter space, and we've lost all of that room and basically been sequestered to a small corner. So we really, again, want to act as a high-end establishment offering a mini BevMo type experience for the people in the community. The findings, again, in B are not consistent with the way they should be. The first two should be, in the affirmative. But again, we're adding, additional lighting. We're adding an additional driveway, which wasn't mentioned, subject to city approval. We listened to this council members' suggestions and have done everything that we heard at the last hearing. We don't think that the application or the operator should be predetermined or prejudged. There's no factual nexus in terms of why the findings couldn't be made. They're more blanket statements. And again, we are willing to operate under conditions of approval, which would give the city the power to take action if we were not in compliance. With regard to the conditions of approval, again, we've reduced the hours, we've reconfigured, we've agreed to not store anything outside, we've agreed to the lighting, the storage outside, and the reduction of hours, which was what we really heard from the council last time. The proposed ABC conditions, my feelings on those are in the record. I think that they're prejudicial and misplaced. However, again, because we know that the department will only affix those conditions that they can legally enforce, that's a conversation that I can avoid tonight. And again, my feelings are our position is rather clear in the comments that we made regarding the same.
Thank you. Next caller.
Dr. Sam Curry, I'll open your mic.
Hello, I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sam Corey. I'm one of the facial trauma surgeons at North Bay. Helped actually this whole start the trauma facial program over at North Bay when the county was going for approval. My office is right next door to this proposed liquor store. There have been numerous homeless people that I've witnessed. There's been numerous drug dealings in that parking lot. We've called the police multiple times. We've called the fire department multiple times because the current owner does not keep that site clean. Originally, and I guess we all had the rug just taken out under us. When the owner, the current owner, applied for this changing zoning, none of us knew that this was happening until this liquor store was, the application for this liquor store did go in. So the original to rezone this area or whatever it is called, because this is a medical dental professional area, and to add another liquor store is just going to add more crime in the area. Stats have shown liquor stores cause crime. I was on call over the weekend at North Bay. 68-year-old man got punched in the face with another facial fracture. Another gentleman from a 7-Eleven had a 7-hour surgery, multiple facial fractures. So having liquor stores and opening those hours just brings trouble to the area. We currently have an AM PM across the street that serves liquor. And I know it's in a separate zone. It's directly across the street. And also across the street, kitty corner, is a 7-Eleven that serves liquor. Then also Rayleigh's that serves liquor. There's no need of public convenience or necessity for this, liquor store to open. Currently, I'm the president of all the surgeons in California, facial surgeons, and normally when something like this does come up, I leave it to my subcommittee, which is the Planning Commission, who has said that there's no public convenience or necessity for this. And I hope that the city council members and mayor and vice mayor would listen to what their subcommittee has recommended, that this condition of approval not be approved. There's just no need, just to have another, liquor store in that area. And if it was this so-called high-class liquor store, a high-class liquor store doesn't stay open until midnight. High-class liquor store or BevMo closes at 9 p.m. It's just more trouble. The police reports have shown there's a 487% exact number, and please forgive me because I don't know crime statistics, increase in violence and calls in that area. And the police department is also against it. So I just hope that the city council just listens to their planning commission, listens to the neighbors, the multiple neighbors.
Caller. Thank you, caller. Next caller.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Marion, I'll open your mic.
Yeah, hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council. This is Marion Elkins. I spoke the first time this came up in February, so I'm just going to reiterate that I agree with Dr. Corey. This just isn't the right fit. There are already 3 other liquor licenses right in the same intersection. I don't care what boundary is drawn or some census tract. Reality says there are 3 other areas, like he mentioned, the AM/PM, the 7-Eleven, Rayleigh's. Surely that is enough liquor sales for that area. It's also 350 feet away from people's homes. You want to put it in their neighborhood when they're already dealing with these other places. And it's, 500 feet away from an elementary school that I spent 5 years teaching at, by the way. Everything else in that area is medical, dental, real estate offices. My CPA used to be over there, professional. A liquor store doesn't belong there. It doesn't need to be there. Your staff has given you a long list of why it would have a bad impact on the nearby places. And as he said, the PD has said it's going to result in further increase in calls. Mainly though, Mayor, you just said something in your speech there about improving the lives of the people in Vacaville. This will not improve the lives of the people who live there. It should go somewhere else where it's not impacting a neighborhood or an elementary school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next caller.
Edward Russell, I'll open your mic.
Yeah. So I just find it funny how capitalistic pigs would basically stab themselves in the back. I don't really see a problem with it. I don't even think it's that serious. I frequent that area quite a bit, and I've never seen none of those school kids that everyone's worried about frequent any of those stores coming out with any kind of alcoholic beverage. Never seen that. I think, again, white America has lost focus. We're worried about alcohol being bought by some elementary school kid, but you have a ammunition and gun store right up the road that is right across from a community center, a daycare facility, a shopping center, a hiking area, an insurance office, and a yoga office. I don't see any complaint about that. So again, I think the anger is misplaced, quite hypocritical. Again, I think you should just go ahead and give this man his business and just allow people to prosper. I thought that was the American dream. Come here and make money. But now we just want to pick and choose who can make money and how they make money. I guess you make more money selling ammunition that kill people. My 2 cents. Have a great evening.
Next caller.
Christopher Buckley, I'll open your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Christopher Buckley. I own the adjacent office complex at 3000 Alamo Drive. I and a number of our building tenants, including Dr. Corey, oppose the subject alcohol beverage sales proposal and urge the city council to deny the application as recommended by staff, including the police department. We've had vagrancy issues in recent years that are related to existing alcohol beverage sales in the immediate area, as evidenced by vagrants patronizing the neighboring AM, PM, and 7-Eleven stores. We're concerned that addition of yet another alcohol beverage store will exacerbate this problem. We appreciate, though, the City Council's effort to make the proposed market's alcoholic beverage component work and the applicant's willingness to implement some of the suggested conditions of approval. However, we are not convinced that these conditions will be sufficient to mitigate the adverse impacts we expect from the proposed alcoholic beverage sales. And staff has noted that some of the conditions will be difficult to monitor and enforce. I would like to say that's great that the owner is trying to get this vacant space occupied, but this is the wrong use in the wrong place. And as staff has noted, there's a lot of other uses that could be permitted by right in this space, including offices, personal services, daycare centers, veterinary hospitals, and various other retail and general merchandise stores. Thank you.
Next caller, please.
Caller ending in 211, I'll open your mic.
Hi, this is Alicia Minion. I live very close to the Alamo Nut Tree intersection. And this particular corner has always been professional office space. And if you allow something other than that in this particular space, you really change the dynamic of that space. And basically it'll evolve into probably all retail. And I think we need to appreciate and preserve the professional office space. And honestly, I don't understand why there is what seems to be preferential treatment being provided to an applicant for a liquor store when it violates our code and potentially state law. If you allow this, then nobody in this entire city is protected. You know, you have doctors who are investing in offices, providing treatment to patients day in, day out. This is their livelihood, and they chose a spot that was protected because there isn't supposed to be liquor stores that come up right next to them. If you allow this, then nobody's safe. I mean, this is unacceptable. Frankly, I don't understand why this process has gotten this far, and this is a perfect example of a waste of everybody's time, money on the applicant side and the staff side. I mean, this is just a no. And furthermore, I'm hearing about, oh, well, we have liquor stores on all these other corners, but we also have restaurants that serve liquor. I mean, why can't we just have one corner that's professional office space? And I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Next caller. Did Jessica, I'm sorry, Crystal, Blake already spoke, so I was going to jump to Jessica.
Correct. Jessica, I'll open your mic.
Yes, there you go.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, hi. Good afternoon. My name's Jessica Cabin. My family and I own and operate Cabin Endodontics, which is in the 3000 Alamo building that Mr. Buckley owns. We're right across from Dr. Corey. My father is Dr. Gerald Cabin. He's an endodontist. He apologizes he wanted to be here tonight. But I'm speaking on his behalf, in behalf of the rest of my family, in opposing this project. This liquor store is going to be for the fourth liquor store in this area. And I'm just to touch on what Dr. Corey has already said. We are constantly dealing with vandalism, with intoxicated people. Just on Wednesday of last week, I had a gentleman with a lit cigarette who was clearly intoxicated walk directly into our waiting room when I was checking in a patient. He left, once I told him to leave, but I mean, and this is happening all the time. We've had people who are intoxicated urinating on our windows while we have patients in the chair staring right at them. Every single morning we come in and we are picking up liquor bottles and trash. Like Dr. Corey said, we've witnessed drug deals go down in the parking lot. I do not feel like another liquor store on this corner is going to improve the city whatsoever. One thing I know that has been brought up by a few people, this just seems like a very odd place to be putting a store like this in the back of a building. I know they mentioned earlier that they're going to be putting a new driveway in. It's just such a secluded place, to be putting a spot like this. And I know Unlimited Smiles, the dentist office that's in the front of the building, has not been operating for almost a year now. We've seen them there maybe a few times since COVID started. And just last week, they were removing all their dental chairs and furniture. And what my question is, what is to stop this new liquor store if Unlimited Smiles does leave, then from taking over the whole building? I mean, how easy is it for them to get into the back of it and then say, oh, okay, now we're expanding on it, and then they're just taking over the whole thing? But again, just to reiterate what Dr. Corey said, all the doctors, I mean, this area in the vicinity, you have a handful of Vacaville's most well-respected doctors and medical practices and other businesses. This is just becoming a constant problem, and exacerbating it is just not a good idea. So thank you for your time.
Mr. City Manager, can someone field her question, please?
Saul, is that something you can take?
Yes, I can take that question. So the question was, once this license gets approved, if there's an opportunity for this tenant space to get bigger, that would be allowed. Let's go back and just review that. The use is a permitted use. What we're discussing here is whether or not another type 21 liquor license serves public convenience and necessity. So once council determines that yes, it does serve a public convenience and necessity at this location, there could be an opportunity for the tenant space to get bigger if the applicant decided to do that.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring it back to the city council. Does anybody have any questions, or I'll entertain motion? I see Councilmember Silva's hand up. Go ahead, Councilmember Silva.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just want to clarify a couple of things. So our current order, so if we approve, the reason why the city staff originally, and is still currently suggesting to deny the application for type 21 license is because it's outside of ordinance. Is that correct?
Yeah, so there's a set of criteria that if we could go back a couple slides to that criteria. There's a set of criteria in the PCN in the City Determination of Public Convenience and Necessity Code that requires the city to analyze each criteria and determine whether or not the application meets this criteria. The first one is impacts to sensitive surrounding uses. As we included in the previous staff report, this proposed location, it's within close proximity of residential uses. And we feel that if there is an increase of calls for service in the area, that might impact the existing residences. Second criteria is whether or not this license is enhancing the recreational or entertainment opportunities in the area. As we described in the previous report, this is an off-sale retail license. It's not a use for recreation or entertainment. Third one, it's whether or not this is enhancing the economic viability of the area. Again, this is the fourth location in the neighborhood where the same types or very similar types of sales will be occurring. We don't think that a fourth one will enhance the economic viability of the area. The next criteria is whether or not there's an excessive number of liquor licenses in the vicinity. As we previously stated, we believe that there's already an excessive number of liquor licenses in the vicinity, given the existing AM, PM, 7-Eleven, and the Rayleighs that all have liquor licenses. Next criteria, history of police or crime-related problems in the area. As we mentioned in the staff report, this particular reporting district has a large number of calls for services, and it's way above 120% of the city average in other reporting districts. So we feel that this criteria is not met as well. The ability to comply with conditions of approval. We've prepared conditions of approval, and even though the applicant has agreed to most of the conditions, there's still one or two that that he has not agreed to.
And is one of those that they didn't agree to close sooner on the weekends because they wouldn't be able to compete for liquor sales? Is that
no, and we can go back to the applicant. I think that they are in agreement with closing at 12 a.m. So from 6 a.m. to 12 a.m. they will be open. I think the one that they wanted council's consideration was on being able to have distilled spirits, tequila, some other types of hard liquor on the sales floor. The condition requires them to keep it outside of the sales floor and only accessible to the employees. So meaning that someone that goes to the store will need to ask an employee to get them the bottle, and then the employee will get the bottle for them. That's, I think, the condition where they're asking to change it so that they can actually have some of these products on the sales floor area.
And then, so okay, I got it, man. So just real quick, I mean, just based on these factors here, I just want to clearly state that I'm not going to support, I personally can't support continuing to concentrate liquor stores in this area. So, but I'm happy to hear the rest of my colleagues' comment. Thank you, sir.
Okay, Councilmember Wiley.
Thank you for the information on all sides, and I appreciate the people who called in tonight. I do want to say, when we met earlier, since this was on the agenda in February, some of the city council members talked about bringing business to town, and it was important to have business. And I agree with that. You know, we do want to have more businesses in town. However, I do not think this is the right business for this place. And because we got late notice today from the applicant sent in some signatures, not everyone may have had a chance to look at those thoroughly. The signatures were under the statement that says we need to have business to generate tax revenue and to provide jobs and to occupy a space that's remained vacant for years. So again, we had like 10 pages of signatures. And because I had time to look at it, I wanted to share my findings. There were 49 signatures on the page of these 10 pages. However, of those 49, only 7 of them reside in District 6. Only 7 of those 49 are in an area that would be really affected by this. 42 of them were outside. So we had 42 of them were not even from Vacaville. So I'm not 42, there were 9 not from Vacaville. The majority of them were from District 4. There was 13 people from District 4. So I just wanted to let you know that even though we saw signatures with a lot, only 7 of them were from District 6. On the other hand, and part of our district packet, there was a letter from Dr. Mumu Min. She and her husband are both dentists in this area. I don't see her on the call tonight, but she had signatures of people that live in District 6. I think there were about 15 signatures on that from our very first meeting in February. So just consider that when we were looking at those signatures. And I really do feel like the big point is this is a professional business, professional area. If we say, well, we want business in there, that will probably, in all likelihood, drive out some of these businesses that are dealing with problems that may increase if this liquor store goes in. So I, as District 6 person who's on the council, I would certainly think that this is not the business for this area, and I will also be voting no on this.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I just had a couple well, I've got a few questions for staff. What triggers whether or not a PCN is needed? I understand that you went over the criteria, but is the criteria what triggers whether it's needed, or is there something that triggers when you evaluate that? Is that something you do for every liquor store?
Yeah, let me answer that question. So the city requires a determination of public convenience or necessity for retail licenses. Retail licenses are the typical type 20, type 21 that allow for convenience markets, liquor stores. Non-retail licenses can be approved by ABC. So a restaurant wanting to sell alcohol can apply for an ABC license, and they don't have to obtain a PCN. Furthermore, for those retail licenses, we have to analyze whether or not there's an overconcentration of licenses in the census tract. In this particular case, the census tract has one license, one existing license, and an ABC allows for 3. So in this case, there's no overconcentration. The other factor is crime, and ABC provides crime statistics for their request. So for this particular license, the crime statistics, and let me get that really quickly. So for this particular district, there were 476 calls for service, where the average number of calls for service in the city, it's 204. So then it is considered to be an overconcentration for that metric that ABC uses for the city. So if this particular request was in an area where there were not a lot of calls for service and not a lot of licenses, ABC would have issued the license without the PCN. So the PCN is only required because of the high number of calls for services in the area.
So how many of those calls for service are related to the stores that are there selling alcohol? Like the 7-Eleven, the gas station, you know, how many of those calls for service are related to those stores? Are we talking about traffic stops? Are we talking about people, you know, running in and stealing liquor? Or are we talking about drunk people hanging out front? Or would any call for service in a surrounding neighborhood count?
Well, this is the entire, so this number, the 476 number, it's all calls for service. And again, calls for services don't necessarily mean that there's a crime. When we ran the numbers for last year, in this particular reporting district, there were only 25 actual offenses. And out of those 25 offenses in the reporting district, there were 8 offenses that were related to alcohol.
How many of those were related to these liquor stores? Or were they at somebody's home, or were they like at one of these locations?
You know, I don't have that information. Perhaps I can ask our representative from the police department, if he's on the call, to help me answer that question, because I do not have that information.
Is the chief on?
Yeah, this is Joe Elio, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Councilman Stockton. I don't know where those 8 alcohol offenses occurred. So that number given in the reporting district is for all calls for service. And they were not broken down by address of occurrence, but in the actual entire district. And I think it's important to note that the district includes Farmington, so it's a high density housing district with 2 large apartment complexes. So we would expect higher calls for service in general.
Oh, so Chief, what would be a call for service? Could that be, is that where somebody's calling because somebody's fighting in the parking lot, or is that somebody making a traffic stop? I mean, what are the limitations of the crime stats, or what crime stat analysis is being done? Like, what qualifies for that call for service?
So the limitation for the discussion you're having is it doesn't identify specifically alcohol-related offenses at these particular locations. I do have the statistics for the 2 similar type businesses, the 2 convenient marts that are at the same intersection for total calls for service.
Mm-hmm.
But the analysis doesn't break down as specific as what you're asking.
So what are, if you have those, what are those for those 2 locations, if you can share them?
Sure. Yeah, we did look at both locations, the 7-Eleven and the Arco, for a 12-month period ending January 31st of this year. And the total calls for service there were 141 combined for both locations. And that would include calls for service that were specific to the businesses, as well as you mentioned a minute ago, maybe somebody made a traffic stop in a parking lot, or some sort of other enforcement action that happened at the location that didn't initiate at the businesses.
Okay. So there's no way to really tell whether or not these liquor stores have had a direct impact on the crime in these areas. Is that correct?
Well, no, I would say that we know, based on specific types of calls for service, that locations that sell alcohol create certain types of calls for service, like suspicious persons, vehicles, a certain number of assaults, which we've got recorded, a certain number of fights that we have recorded, a certain number of trespassing, and some of the information provided by the callers, I would say all do connect to places where alcohol is sold. I would say
in general.
Okay. Yeah, these stats are broader, and I would also say that these are consistent stats anytime alcohol is being discussed in a reporting district for sale. These are the same type of stats that are drawn for comparison's sake.
Okay. The other question, thank you, Chief. The other question that I had is, I'm wondering if has anyone, if the owner of this business, I think the last time that this was brought to council, there was a discussion regarding the fact that this establishment's been empty for some time. I think it was 9 months then. It sounds like it's been empty for a year now, or almost a year. Has there been any other businesses that have been interested in renting this besides the liquor store that's petitioned for us to do this? Is there somebody that can answer that question?
In planning, we have not received any inquiries for other uses.
No, I think we need to ask the applicant, or Blake. I believe he's still on the line. I think we have to ask somebody that knows about I don't think that would be a city question. Is that right, Councilmember Stockton?
Well, yeah, I mean, if the city is certainly aware of another person petitioning for a use permit, that's one thing. But if they're not, then I would definitely like to know. I mean, what I'm struggling with here is that it seems as though crime statistics that may be completely unrelated to these liquor stores are being used to trigger this PCN. And while I certainly care about if there's an increase of vandalism or urinating on windows or vagrancy issues that have been discussed by many of the callers, if I don't have a way if I can't target those things through the police department crime statistics, I have a really hard time believing that it's my place to say whether or not this is an acceptable use if it's an acceptable permitted use. So I've had a lot of people that have called on both sides of this issues and spoke to me. I appreciate the people that want to do business here in Vacaville, and I care about the safety of the communities that surround our businesses. But I also don't want to get into the business of telling people when they can or cannot open a business and bring it to Vacaville if it's a permitted use and we're using crime statistics that aren't directly associated with these areas. And especially while this building sits empty and we have somebody that wants to bring their business there. So that's what I'm getting at. I haven't made up my mind, and I really want this information before I make a decision.
Okay, Councilmember Ritchie.
Thank you so much. I just want to I don't want to reiterate and kind of talk about things that was covered by the other councilmen, but the applicant's representative kind of highlight two things: high end and kind of the mini BevMo experience. Those kind of two things that kind of really touched my interest when he said those. I was not an elected official during the last time this was brought to the council, but in my review, he already made concessions, modifications from 6 a.m. To 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. to midnight. I think if he wants to kind of really focus, and the touch and feel of the neighborhood is business. It is a medical business, and I think that should be respected and appreciated. So the fact that he wants to make this upscale store, I think he should be willing to make some more concessions to kind of adhere to the touch and feel of the community, to make it fit in and not be like obtrusive. If he's going to sell craft beer and high-priced spirits, I'll recommend a few things he can kind of do to seamlessly kind of fit into the business park of professionals that are not, they're businesses that are dentists and doctors that I totally understand that. I actually had a chance to meet with some of them, and I share their concerns. There's a nearby school. One of the things I feel he can do to really, really push this thing forward would be to propose that he has signage. If we do this, I don't want to see any signage of a liquor store facing the line of sight of the school. I think that should be restricted only to Alamo Drive and not in the other side of the parking lot that's going to face the other businesses and have that blaring in the windows as they're trying to conduct business. And also, more importantly, is the line of sight. There's no reason why a school should be staring at a liquor store sign 24/7. So that's something that when I drove the site and walked it, I noticed that line of sight. That should be taken consideration. If he's willing to do that, that'd be a great step. Also, I'd like to request that due to the fact that the school is in proximity, it is farther away than AM PM, but if he wants to have a professional store that mimics a BevMo experience, the 6 to 2 is not necessary. The 6 to midnight is better. But I want to see him restrict alcohol sales. Not alcohol sales, restrict minors. There's no reason why someone under 18 should go and walk in that store 45 minutes before school starts, throughout the whole school day, and 45 minutes after. If he's willing to make these kind of adjustments to make sure that no kid can walk in there without a accompanying 18-year-old, accompanying adult, I think those are kind of steps I'd like to see, that he's willing to kind of take this and make sure it's a professional mini BevMo experience. Across the street, A&PM is a franchise. It is probably locally owned. 7-Eleven is a franchise with a local owner. I like the fact that this is not a franchise coming in. It's actually someone that's kind of independently small business. And I hope he takes that into consideration. And he has a lot more to lose than a franchise. So if he's willing to make these adjustments, I would love to entertain to approve it. But I would like to hear his representative or him, if he's willing to really limit his time and availability for kids to walk in that store. They don't need to get stuff before school. If he's willing to make those adjustments, I think that'd be pretty favorable.
Mr. City Manager, do we have a representation or a representative, excuse me, from the store?
Sir, I'd have to check, defer to our solo on that matter.
Yes, so they are in the call. I think if they can raise their hand, maybe we can open their mic.
Is it under Blake? Is that?
No.
Yes, it is. It's under Blake's office.
Okay.
Blake and
Okay.
Hi, this is Mike
And
Diaz again. I'm the representative. Just a few points. The location has been vacant approximately 9 years, according to the landlord and the agent that was present last hearing. And with regard to the comments made, again, I think we're restricted in signage to 22.5 square feet. My client does not have a problem with restricting signs on Alamo. So that would be something that we would, or whichever street faces the school. That wouldn't be a problem for us. Additionally, I think there are, and I would defer to the city attorney, but there are possibly some laws that would limit children being out and about during school time hours. We don't have a problem with that condition in requiring, minors, and when I say minors under 18, to be in the store without a parent or guardian. The only thing that I would say that it is a public premises, but again, that's not our target demographic. So if that's something that you wanted, as long as it's nothing that would cause a age discrimination lawsuit from my client. And I think if we look at, maybe some Vacaville codes that have certain restrictions on children in school time hours, that wouldn't be an issue for us either. Again, we are wanting to do everything that we can to bring this business to Vacaville. And we're paying our pound of flesh. We'll give more, the signage, the children coming in. Again, as long as that's a legal condition, we're fine with that. And so we would agree to that. With regard to the crimes for the service calls, we did do the analysis on the calls that were being used as a basis for the denial. And Saul sent these to me back in February. We narrowed it down to actually 25 crimes, as he indicated in his report or in his presentation. And of those, there were 8 alcohol-related offenses, to include, people driving, but again, not from a particular location. So I would again point to the Nut Tree Liquor IRA 602 that was provided to us as part of the record that was sent to us on the 11th. That show that almost all of these came from the River Run Apartments. I mean, I think all of them came from the River Run Apartments, to be honest. All 25 actual cases that resulted from calls for service. Calls for service are anything from I lost my wallet to a broken window to the more serious crimes. So in an apartment building, as the police chief indicated, there are going to be higher crimes. And again, those are going to be broken into cars, theft, a number of things. But I can tell you, and there's no denying it from what is in the record, that 25 actual crimes resulted, and 8 of those were alcohol-related offenses with no nexus to any of the uses that are at issue at all. I just don't see where that connection can be made. But that being said, we would agree to those conditions related to the signage. And again, based on the legality of that condition, we would agree to that as well. But again, I defer to the city attorney.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points. The conversation's gone a couple different directions tonight. Every one of us has probably been to a liquor store at some point in time, and we know what we're talking about here. This is not going to be some business where they're selling flowers and vegetables and healthy things. And I'm not necessarily opposed to that. I know what we're getting into, and I'm supportive of certain areas, but liquor stores, by nature of being a liquor store, are going to bring crime. They're going to bring vagrancy. They're going to bring issues with addiction. They're going to bring tobacco products. We are talking about a location that already has liquor on all 3 corners. It is adjacent an elementary school. Staff are saying, no, don't do this. The police chief says, yes, there's crime issues, and indicates there probably will be other issues. Several surrounding businesses have said, no, don't do this. Dozens of residents have emailed and called us and said, no, don't do this. I really do apologize for wasting this business owner's time and the legal fees and the money, but it's just a bad idea. I mean, I'm not opposed to liquor stores in Vacaville. There's plenty of other locations, but we're getting all of the indicators to say this is not a great spot. For us to say this won't cause crime, this won't cause vagrancy, or that's silly. We know it will. If this was the only liquor store in the area, it'd be a different story. And I think importantly too is after moving to districts, this is probably one of the first issues where the representative from that district has said, hey, council, please don't do this, respect kind of my district wishes. And I think we owe Councilwoman Wiley a modicum of respect to listen to that. If other council members don't have a problem with it, find a liquor store location in your neighborhood or somewhere by your elementary school or somewhere that is amenable to you. But everything we're getting from staff, from the police, from the neighbors, from the council person in that district is saying, no, don't do this. So I'm not sure why we're drawing this out and trying to say, oh, it's great, it's going to be fine, it's not a big deal, it's going to create jobs and be this beautiful thing. The owner's probably great, but it's a liquor store. So I'm also a no, and I hope we just listen to staff on this one. And I'm ready to make a motion, or someone can make a motion in a minute. But I know there's more council members who want to speak, but I'm sort of surprised we're going this deep on this one. When staff's already saying no, and so many other things say no to this issue. So I'm a no tonight.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, and I appreciate everybody's comments, but I have a hard time saying, I'm having a difficult time with the fact that we have a minority business owner that wants to open up a business in an area that it is permitted for. And I understand that we have different districts. I'm not discounting that, but we represent Vacaville. And if we say no to businesses that want to come here for a permitted use, I think that creates problems too. I think that the crime statistics that are being referenced in this PCN have no correlation to any of the liquor stores that are there right now. And I think that that frankly, I think that this is sad that we're going to turn away a business owner from renting a property that has been vacant for 12 months, 9 years, however long. I think it's sad. I think that if we start getting in the process of telling people no when we have no evidence, no crime stats to back the decision that we're making a mistake. So I'm all for this gentleman living his American dream and opening up his business. And, I would welcome trying to find a location in District 1 or anywhere where this man can feed his family. I understand that staff says it's not going to affect or enhance the economic vitality of the area, but it will for this man and his family. And so That's why, without any evidence to show that there's crime stats that are going to negatively affect that area as a result of adding another liquor store, I'm going to support him being able to open it.
Okay, Councilmember Silva.
Just last question real quick. For Saul, are there other places that he can pursue this business license, this Title 21?
I don't know the answer to that question. Other places?
Other places within Vacaville?
Well, every place will be different. Every place will require us to do the same type of analysis, take a look at how many licenses are in the vicinity and take a look at the reporting district statistics. So it's difficult for us to be able to answer that question. There's many commercial areas where this could work, but I just don't know if a PCN will be required in some of those other areas.
Okay. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the market's possibly already saturated, or that there's already high call volume, correct?
Correct. So in different areas, there might already be liquor licenses too. In the vicinity, or the calls for services may be high as well. So
it's just, so basically, I mean, just to move this along, we're moving forward. There's other opportunities to establish a business within the city of Vacaville. I don't feel that area we need to concentrate any type of business in a certain area. I understand the concept of capitalism. I also don't feel that's going to dissuade any other businesses from trying to come to Vacaville. It just lets them know, hey, please try to respect and work with the community that you're impacting. And I haven't heard anything in the community that directly wants it, just from others who wanted to come here. Initially, my goal was to have, for the city to suggest other places or other options to open a business there. If that's the option, there's other ways to pursue the American dream. So with that said, I'm on a motion to approve option A, motion to adopt resolution A and deny the applicant for city determination of public convenience or necessity for alcoholic beverages and so on.
I will second that.
I got a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes, I'm approving the vote no.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton.
No.
Councilmember Ritchie.
No.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Mayor Roulette.
No. So it will pass to deny the application for the liquor store. We will move on to next item 9B. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. This next item is a public hearing to receive verbal comments on the proposed moving to work plan. Our Tim Colden from our Housing Services Department will make a presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Roulette, Vice Mayor Sullivan, and council members. Can you hear me all right tonight?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
All right. Tonight, I'm here to present a presentation of an application for a move to work plan for the Vacaville Housing Authority and conduct a public hearing as a requirement of that application. Next slide, please. So some background on the Move to Work program and the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They administer the Housing Choice Voucher Program to assist low-income families to afford safe, decent, and sanitary housing. They do this by providing funding to public housing authorities, and the Vacaville Housing Authority administers the Housing Choice Voucher Program for the city of Vacaville. Households earning an average of $46,250 for a family of 4 are eligible for the program currently. And the Vacaville Housing Authority invests nearly $12 million into the local economy each year, and we assist approximately 1,300 households. Next slide, please. The Move to Work program was established in 1996 with the goal to reduce cost and achieve greater cost effectiveness in the Housing Choice Voucher program, provide incentives for families to become self-sufficient and increase housing choice for families. HUD released a notice to expand the demonstration in 2016, and in January of this year, as part of that expansion, HUD released a request for application under a fourth cohort for the Move to Work expansion, which focuses on landlord incentives. In order to apply to become a Move to Work agency under this cohort, the Housing Authority had to administer no more than 27,000 vouchers or public housing units or a combination of both. The Housing Authority has to be a high-performing agency, of which the Vacaville Housing Authority is, as well as the Housing Authority, if accepted, has to agree to evaluate activities or implement activities that will create landlord incentives to increase participation in the program. Overall, Move to Work agencies are able to design and test locally designed housing and self-sufficiency strategies for low-income families, and also allows the Housing Authority to use administrative dollars and rental assistance dollars more flexibly, sort of like a block grant, as long as the Housing Authority implements the activities allowed under the program. Next slide, please. As part of the application process, the Vacaville Housing Authority has drafted a Move to Work plan. Now, Vacaville Housing Authority must conduct a public outreach process, which consists of at least 2 community meetings, which were held, and I'll discuss a little bit more later. Hold a public hearing to accept comments on the draft Move to Work plan. And then after a minimum of 30 days from the public hearing, the Housing Authority Board will approve the final plan with any changes or comments that are received by the Housing Authority, and then submit a complete application package to HUD by the deadline. Next slide, please. As part of its Move to Work draft plan, the Vacaville Housing Authority is anticipating or suggesting that we implement certain activities, some which are allowed under the program and others which will satisfy the requirement of meeting landlord incentives. There are, 6 activities that are being proposed in this initial draft plan, which are discussed in greater detail in the executive summary and the plan. But generally, the Vacaville Housing Authority will be proposing to move annual re-exams from every year to every 3 years for families in which at least 90% of the income is from a fixed source. This will meet the program's objectives of reducing costs for administrative costs and greater cost effectiveness in the program. The Vacaville Housing Authority is also proposing to allow families that have assets of less than $50,000 to self-certify income of those assets, as opposed to providing third-party documentation of the account, again, in an effort to reduce administrative costs and achieve greater cost effectiveness in the program. And then as part of a landlord incentive package, the Vacaville Housing Authority will be proposing implementing vacancy loss payments in order to provide payments for landlords during a period of time when the unit is vacant, while the Housing Authority completes its process to lease up another or new family in the unit. The Vacaville Housing Authority is also proposing establishing a damage claim fund that will allow participating landlords to claim damages that are above normal wear and tear that may have been caused by a participating family. The Vacaville Housing Authority is also proposing establishing a lease-up incentive fund to encourage new landlords to join the program, and then is also proposing pre-qualifying unit inspections that will allow the Housing Authority to conduct inspections on vacant units, even though a family has not yet identified that unit for occupancy. And these last four activities are all proposed to increase housing choice and landlord participation in the program. In addition, if accepted to participate, the Vacaville Housing Authority would also use the housing assistance payment or HAP funding as well as administrative funding more flexibly to increase efficiency in the program. Next slide, please. So for this application timeline, the Vacaville Housing Authority did release the draft plan and made it available on the website, on the city website, and in the office for review. The Housing Authority held 2 public outreach meetings, the first on Tuesday, June 15th, and the second on Thursday, June 17th, to receive comment on the draft plan. Those public meetings, as well as this public hearing, was noticed in the Vacaville Reporter paper, as well as posted on the city's website and on the city's Facebook page. The Housing Authority is also required to send direct notice to all participants on the program of the public meeting to get comment from current participants. So the Housing Authority did mail the notice directly to every active participant in the program. The Housing Authority will then accept comment tonight and through a minimum 30-day comment period through July 27th, in which the Housing Authority will bring back the final plan, which will incorporate any comments or suggestions from the community for final approval to be submitted to HUD by the application submission date. It was August 8th. However, just yesterday, HUD released that they are extending that application deadline to October 15th of 2021. Next slide, please. So tonight, they applying for designation as a move to work agency does not require any funding. It does meet the strategic plan goal and initiative to protect Vacaville quality of life and provide housing for all. And tonight, staff is recommending that the board hold a public hearing to solicit further public comments to be incorporated into the move to work plan. Next slide, please. Comment, questions, or concerns can be discussed during tonight's public hearing. Through the 30-day comment period, we can also accept comment by phone or in writing, either in person here at our offices located at 40 Eldridge Avenue, suite number 2. We also have a drop box if someone would like to drop off their comment after the office is closed at 5. We can accept comments by mail, also sent to 40 Eldridge Avenue, suite number 2 here in Vacaville, or the public can comment by email by sending their comments to dhr@cityofvacaville.com. Next slide. And with that, I am open to any questions, comments, or concerns from the council or the public.
Thank you. We'll open it up public comment. I see nothing from public comment. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to council. Okay, we don't have an action item, right? Hold a public hearing, which we did, and listen to comments. We'll move to 10A, Mr.
Quick question,
City Manager.
Mayor. Quick question, Mayor.
Oh, sure.
Sorry. When do you guys need feedback by again? Apologize for missing that.
Yeah, so we would need feedback by July 27th, because on July 27th, we will be bringing back the final plan for approval to council.
Great, thank you.
Vice Mayor Sullivan.
Just a quick comment. I just want to say thank you to staff. I know it's a ton of work, and I know that the value add here element to the housing element and to our process for our vouchers is pretty good. So I just want to say thank you to staff for all the time, effort, and input you put into your presentation tonight. Thank you.
Councilmember Wiley.
I also want to say thanks for this information, and it's a great program. You know, if we have 1,300 people on the voucher program, that's great. The issue is we have 600 people on the waiting list for the program, and so it's really a needed thing. So I do appreciate all your efforts to work for it, and whatever we can do to help find housing for the other people is something that this council should do going forward.
Great, thank you. Next item, please, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Council. This next item is an update on the Visit Vacaville Recovery and Resilience Strategy and an update on their annual report. Tim Patton, our Economic Development Manager, will introduce the topic for you tonight.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council members. Tonight's item is a follow-up to the February 9th, 2021 City Council meeting in which Visit Vacaville presented the Visit Vacaville Recovery and Resilience Action Plan and Strategy. The tourism industry continues to be one of the sectors hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic, and the outlook remains highly uncertain, but there is hope as COVID-related restrictions are loosened. The tourism industry is one of the economic drivers in the city of Vacaville. Lodging properties contributed nearly $2 million from transient occupancy tax to the city's general fund. In addition to transient occupancy tax, the tourism industry supports more than 1,500 jobs in our local lodging, retail, and restaurant establishments. The strategy, which was formally adopted by the council at February 9th meeting, addresses the challenges created by the pandemic and proposed recovery measures. This strategy runs concurrent with the City of Vacaville's COVID-19 economic recovery strategy. Tonight, Visit Vacaville will also be presenting their annual report, which details the marketing efforts and success of their tourism marketing strategy and a recently completed resident sentiment study as part of the Visit Vacaville recovery strategy. Presenting the Visit Vacaville Recovery Resilience Action Plan and Strategy, the Visit Vacaville Annual Plan, and the Resident Sentiment Study, we have with us Melissa Reeves, President and CEO of Visit Vacaville. And I will turn it over to Melissa.
Great, thank you, Tim. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Wonderful. Good evening, Mayor Roulette, Vice Mayor Sullivan, and members of council. Thank you so much for allowing me a few minutes this evening to kind of overview our last year, which was anything but business as usual, and kind of fill you in on our plans for the next fiscal year. Next slide, please. So here's a little overview of kind of what we've been working on the last year. And if you move to the next slide, we'll go into these items a little further, please. So even during COVID, we were able to launch a new website. You know, this is really our #1 sales tool and really most people's introduction to our city when they're coming to visit. So staying up on current trends and making sure that our website is a great representation of our community is highly important to us, and an area where we focus a lot of both financial resources and a lot of attention. So we were able to launch a new site with a lot of new functionalities. Next slide. One of those new functionalities is a new trip planner. So visitors to our site are able to go to this trip planner and actually build their entire itinerary for their visit to Vacaville. So everything from choosing the attractions and the hotels that they'll stay in to the restaurants that they'll visit while they're here. They can print that itinerary and make reservations accordingly. So it's a great new tool that has been highly utilized on the new site. Next slide. Just actually 2 weeks ago, we launched the new Vacaville Savings Pass. We'll talk a little further in a few minutes about the tourism recovery strategy. But one of those items that we promised our business community during that strategy was to do anything that we could to support them and to really try to drive not only visitor traffic, but resident traffic back to their businesses. We are trying to do that through this digital savings pass. We've got about 25 restaurants and attractions and businesses that are participating so far in the Savings Pass, with more being added monthly, and that are offering discounts. And there again, those additional businesses are being uploaded every month, so it's constantly changing. New offers are being added, and really just giving residents and visitors an incentive to visit and frequent our local businesses. Next slide. We also felt that it was really important to look at research and how to benchmark kind of where we've been and where we're going. We've partnered with a firm called Zartico that aggregates multiple data points and pulls them all into one report so that we can really see not only where we are today, but kind of plan for our future in tourism. See where visitors are frequenting, where they're spending their money, and where we really need to focus our attention as far as do restaurants need a lot more attention? Do hotels need a lot more attention and marketing focus? It's the first opportunity that we've had as a very small DMO to be able to aggregate all of our data points and really see how our destination is performing overall. We're really excited about the opportunity, not only for us to have this data, but for your economic development department to have this data as well. I think it's a really great partnership for both departments to be able to strategize and see not only how we can increase visitation, but also how we can help increase TOT for the city of Vacaville. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, and as we've all lived, clearly this last year was definitely not business as usual. But we did create a strategy to get people out and still supporting our local businesses during the pandemic. We created the Vacaville Healthy Pledge program. This program was aimed at building consumer confidence in our businesses, that they are adhering to safety protocols, and that they were safe businesses, and that they were, really paying attention to all safety protocols and anything that they needed to do to, adhere to state regulations and make people feel comfortable about supporting them. So we had over 100 businesses take the pledge. With more and more actually still signing on, even though we've kind of backburnered this program. But I think during the height of the pandemic, it was a really important pledge for businesses to take and to honor our residents. Next slide. In addition to the pledge, we also made sure that residents and visitors and hospitality businesses were aware of all COVID-related guidances, safety protocols, reopening guidelines, with dedicated pages on both our website and in our newsletters. We wanted to make sure that the hospitality industry and our residents and visitors were aware of any changes to any protocols or allowances for travel or unallowances for travel. So we kept those pages, on a constant state of update and change, and also sent newsletters out on a very regular basis to keep people informed. Next slide, please. And as Tim mentioned, and I think that you saw during our presentation in February, we did work with the city of Vacaville on a tourism recovery strategy. This strategy really gave us kind of a roadmap to how to best support our hospitality industry as we move forward through the pandemic and as we come out the other side. Next slide. Some of the recovery goals were really, at the time, was ensuring safety was clearly a top priority. And then how do we look at weather and how that impacts our visitation? Clearly in the wintertime, a lot of our activities in Vacaville are outdoor, which served us very well during the pandemic. But what are the things that we can do to make sure that visitation stays at a high level during colder seasons, and generate additional spending, and then build resilience so that should we ever, God forbid, deal with any issues like we've dealt the last year, that we're in a better place to be able to weather those types of storms. Next slide. And then also very, very interesting to us, and kind of in addition to the recovery strategy, we completed a resident sentiment survey. Over 500 of our residents completed a very lengthy, and I thank all of them for taking the time to fill out this very long survey. But it was actually very fascinating to find out how our residents feel about tourism in our city. And we were very pleased to learn that there's actually great support for tourism and tourism growth. That there was a lot of interest in just knowing more about what's happening in the tourism industry. And because of that, we've created new streams of communication directly to our residents on tourism and what's happening in tourism development, and really just how we're trying to grow the tourism industry in our city. Next slide. And again, just connections to sentiment, we really saw that there were a number of different data points and areas that our residents were very interested in. Job placement for displaced workers was very important. We also saw that it was really important to advocate for arts and culture, and create new demand drivers as well. So giving people an additional reason to come to Vacaville. Next slide, please. And then we'll look a little bit as to hopefully what we hope is a little more normal year this next fiscal. Next slide. I will tell you that we are very, very happy to see, and we are among the very small group of destinations that is experiencing occupancy levels almost to pre-COVID levels already. While our rate is not back, we are seeing an incredible increase in our occupancy levels, which we could not be more pleased about. We do anticipate a very strong summer. There clearly is a lot of pent-up travel demand, and we will take it. So as far as our marketing plan is concerned, kind of some of the things we're planning is to restart our marketing, which is very recent. We just kind of turned on the marketing spigot in the last few weeks. We did host our restaurant week this year. We will again this next year, hopefully a little more normal where people can dine in. In February, we'll hold our I Love Vacaville week, and we will be bringing back the farm to table dinner in October in downtown Vacaville. We'll host our Arts Week in September. We did not print our visitor guide last year, so we'll be bringing that publication back along with our relocation packet and a number of other publications that haven't been printed recently. We are building new beer and taco trails on the same platform that we are hosting the Vacaville Savings Pass on. And as I mentioned, we're really focusing on resident-specific communication to make sure that our residents know what's happening in tourism and how we're trying to build our economy through tourism. Next. I am not sure if I'm super excited to announce or terrified to tell you that next week tomorrow we are recording our first 2 episodes of Destination Vacaville podcast. This podcast will focus on our restaurants, our hotels, our attractions, really just our hospitality industry, what our industry is doing to recover from the pandemic, and really just talking about exciting things that are happening in our community. And as you all know, there's so many things to talk about right now. So we're very, very excited to record those first episodes. They'll come out the 2nd and 4th Thursday of every month. We hope that you will listen. I'd love to have listeners that are not just my husband and my mom. So please, we would love to have any of you listen that are willing. We're really excited to launch this new program. Next. And I don't know why the S is so far away from partnerships, but we do have a number of partnerships that we're really, really proud of. And I think really built on during the pandemic. I think there was an opportunity for us to really lean on each other and build strength in these relationships. And, you know, I can't thank Don Burris and Tim Patton enough in economic development for their support of our organization and our group, the Big Four, that includes economic development, the Chamber of Commerce, the Downtown Business Improvement District, and Visit Vacaville. That group has been so integral, I think, in all of our success and actually really just surviving this last year. So again, I think economic development, Brooke and Debbie at the Chamber, it's been just great to have all of them and us working together so closely. Also sit on the board of the Solano Economic Development Corporation, and tourism is a big part of economic development. So I'm grateful to be a part of that organization as well. And actually, we've been working very closely with the Workforce Development Board. The hospitality industry is seeing a real challenge in hiring staff. Our restaurants and hotels are struggling with getting workers, and so it's been great to work with them and try to see how we can combat some of those issues. And we actually have someone from the Workforce Development Board coming on our board of directors starting next month. So we're excited about that development and hope that we can help support the hospitality industry with job development there. Next slide. So thank you so much. I appreciate the time. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, it's been anything but business as usual the last year and a half, but we couldn't be happier to be on the other side of it. And we are exceptionally grateful to be in a destination that has such a diverse economy and is able to bring in so many types of visitors that really sustains our tourism industry. And we appreciate your support.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up for public comment. I see no public comment. I'll close public comment, bring it back to Councilmember Stockton.
Yes, I wanted to thank you, Melissa, for for the great presentation and all the great work that you do, getting and encouraging people to come and visit Vacaville, shop in our stores, hopefully move here or bring their businesses here. So thank you. I know how hard you work and how passionate you are. Is there anything, that you think would help Vacaville attract more people that wasn't covered in the presentation that could be helpful with bringing more people here or attracting them to come and spend more time in Vacaville, shop in our stores and eat at our restaurants?
I do. Thank you, Councilman Stockton, for asking. I think that we are an exceptionally strong Monday through Thursday destination. That is really driven by rooms from Travis Air Force Base, from our biotech. We have a very, very strong corporate tourism program. Like I said, Monday through Thursday, it's you will struggle to get rooms in Vacaville. We do have a very hard time with weekend business, and really what's driven all of our weekend business has been youth sports. However, our ability to grow that market is severely limited by our lack of facilities. So, I know there's been talk of a sports complex for quite some time, and I really believe that would be a very big catalyst to being able to increase our weekend tourism business.
Okay, thank you so much.
Councilmember Silva.
Thank you. That's a great question, Councilmember Stockton. And along those lines, one of the things that I've seen in other areas, we have Fiesta Days here, as well as in Santa Barbara. In Santa Barbara, it brings people out from all around Southern California, as well as other festivals. And I know we have different groups that work on different type of festivals and celebrations, but has there been any talks to do additional, maybe larger festivals to tap into these different groups throughout the region, whether it be from additional food components or more conferences, or even the Nut Tree Pumpkin Patch, of trying to revitalize that charm that once always consistently brought to our area?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Councilman Silva. So our organization, other than putting on our farm to table dinner, which we really put into place to build on our agritourism product and the fact that we have all these great farms that are doing amazing things. We are definitely not an event organization. You know, we are a marketing organization first and foremost. And because of the way our funding is structured, our ability to put on events ourselves is fairly limited. However, we do support any events, especially weekend-long events that will bring in room nights. It's unfortunate that we don't have that event in our community that drives weekend visitation or a weekend-long visitation. We do hope that there is a group out there that would take on such an endeavor. We absolutely will support any of those types of projects with any marketing that we possibly can. We've also talked to the Downtown Business Improvement District about having an event grant program. That grant program would include marketing that would last about 3 years. So the first year they would get a certain amount as long as that their event would bring in overnight visitation, and they would taper off over 3 years with the idea that that would get them started and get the event going, and then that money would move on to another event. So there definitely is some thought on our part about how to maybe entice a group to come and put on a larger scale event. And we'll continue to explore those opportunities wherever we can. We feel just like you, we need it as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, we'll move on to item 10B.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. Tonight, I'm happy to present to you your fiscal 21-22 budget for your final consideration and approval. I'd like to begin my presentation with a recap of this year's budget process. Next slide, please. Okay, when you see the next slide, you'll see we've done quite a few things this past year for this year's budget process. We began with quarterly budget updates to keep the council informed about what was going on with the economic recovery as a result of the past year's pandemic. We conducted a Budget 101 study session in April. We also had a special study session on Measure M in May, so that we could bring the new council up to speed on those particular elements of the budget process. We then had our first 2 budget study sessions in May as well, where we covered things like the general fund budget versus project revenues, fiscal trends through the 3rd quarter, and then we presented to you budget augmentations for last year's fiscal year budget, as well as new development and augmentations for this upcoming budget. We also talked about the Federal American Rescue Plan Act that's coming your way. And then we also talked about Measure M augmentations, and we provided you our first introduction to the 5-year forecast. For the most recent City Council meeting in June, we had our second study session where we discussed the operating budget summaries, department presentations from each of your departments, as well as the city's capital improvement program budget summary. I believe that throughout this entire process, we tried to make sure that it was very informative and very transparent for not only the council members, but for our community as well. Next slide, please. So unlike last year's cautious and strategic budget that was developed around the uncertainty of the COVID pandemic, this year's budget was designed with a new approach for open for business. And the reason that we are highlighting that approach is that we came out better than expected through the economic recovery in Solano County. There's renewed optimism about city revenues bouncing back, especially with parks and recreation programs and the aforementioned TOT tax that Melissa just spoke about. And then we also are looking to return all citywide services back to the community. Next slide, please. So there's 2 components of this year's budget that I'd really like to highlight for you tonight. And the first of those is reopening. Reopening City Hall for more than business as usual. That includes the restoration and expansion of department programs and services. We've included centralized budgets for public safety equipment and homeless line items. And more importantly, we've been increasing capacity in departments through new personnel and technology resources to meet the demands of our growing city. As you can see here, we've provided you the list of positions that were included in the budget for augmentations. There's a total of 11 shown here, but really 10 new positions because one of them, the finance assistant, was a limited term position that we are converting to permanent. I'd just like to say that these positions reflect the objectives of the city's strategic plan and really provides some important resources that we need to go forward with the heavy work plan that we have planned for this next year. As you can see here, we have 3 non-full-time conversion positions in the Parks Department, which we're very excited about, especially with the recent adoption of the Parks and Rec Master Plan just a couple months ago. We also have 3 non-general fund positions in housing and 2 in engineering services. Next slide, please. The second highlight that I wanted to bring up is reconnecting with the community. And this was real important, we felt, because, you know, we've all been suffering through the COVID pandemic the past year, with the shelter at home orders, people locked in their homes and businesses struggling. We wanted to come out strong with this year's budget and bring new investment and improvements in programs and events. And so through the efforts of the study session on Measure M, we recommended and the council supported an investment of over $9 million in community investment allocated to programs, services, and quality of life for our citizens. These include park improvements, which we've identified park improvements in every city council district, as well as lighted ball fields and some financial assistance for the Play for All Park. We also are putting efforts into our community engagement efforts, which will include engagement and communication efforts, as well as staff trainings related to equity, diversity, and inclusion to better connect our Vacaville team with the community we're dedicated to serve each and every day. We also have youth scholarship programs to help those who are in need of financial assistance to take advantage of all the wonderful programs that our Parks and Rec department offers. And then the council was very generous in the fact that we're bringing back a lot of the great old events that make Vacaville special, with our Creek Walk series, our 4th of July, and our Fiesta Days, and covering the cost for those events. In addition to those Measure M projects, we have some additional strategic plan priorities and projects. I'll just highlight some of those that are included in our work plan this year. A housing strategy that will identify what types of housing are needed to serve our changing demographics of our growing community. An important audit of our police department that will showcase the work that our men and women that serve this community perform, while identifying additional ways to further improve our connection with the community. Completion of our downtown specific plan, which is intended to make the downtown even more of a destination, as well as a community amenity by attracting new housing and businesses. Further implementation of our biotech and advanced manufacturing strategies that will bring more career living wage jobs to the community. And finally, a new fiber optics master plan that will attract even more upscale businesses to Vacaville, while also improving services for all city facilities as well. Next slide. So now that I've hit the highlights, I want to get into some of the numbers. So first, beginning with our budget appropriation overview. You see here all the different funds that comprise our total operating budget of $235 million. General fund comprises just under $127 million of that. Enterprise funds, $59 million. Successor agencies, $7.5 million, for a total of $235+ million. We also have a capital improvement budget of $51 million. Now, I will point out that this budget is a little bit higher. This number is a little bit higher by roughly $500,000. Reason for that is that we had to allocate $100,000 in general fund non-departmental expenses for the housing strategy that we're working on, as well as $380,000 in special revenue for the housing department for 31 extra emergency housing vouchers that were recently awarded to the program. Next slide, please. So here's a representation of the proposed operating budget, that $235 million that I just mentioned. This shows all the different departments and the percentages that they comprise of the operating budget. Just some of the highlights. The utilities is our largest at $56.7 million, followed by our housing and successor agency at $31 million. Police department, $44.8 million, fire, $31.6, and so on. Next slide, please. Now on to our general fund revenue sources. We received the majority of our revenue to our general fund from property tax and sales tax. You can see those percentages here. We collect 33.7 million in property tax and 23.4 million in sales tax. Other taxes is just under 23 million. And another noteworthy item is Measure M revenues is 18.7 million for all grand total of 118.6 million. Next slide, please. So this is a specific illustration of the general fund broken down. So as you recall, that was the 120 million or so. This is by the different departments here, and the general fund represents 54% of the total operating budget. Now, one thing I'd like to point out here is that, you know, as evidenced by the budget augmentations for positions, unlike other years, we've spread the wealth, if you will, and we've added additional resources in, you know, our administration departments as well as our Parks and Rec departments that I mentioned earlier. And as you can see on this slide, that this reflects that, you know, the changes from last year's budget, that the police department's budget has gone down a percentage point, as has Public Works, and the Parks and Rec and administration departments budgets have increased by 1%. Next slide, please. So once again, we're providing you a summary of our 5-year forecast. This is similar to the forecast presented at the first budget study session in May, but we added the fiscal year of 26. Real quickly, the forecast assumes a full reopening occurs in a new fiscal year with no regression due to the pandemic. Our revenues impacted by COVID recover in the upcoming fiscal year. All of the augmentations, improvements, community initiatives that we discussed in prior study sessions are included in this forecast. Expenses will exceed revenue in fiscal year 22 because we're opening with bang, but over the life of the forecast, revenues will exceed expenses, as you can see here, especially in fiscal year 26. And this, we're also showing you a healthy general fund reserve line in blue that we added to this chart. Next slide, please. Okay, now moving on to some required information that we need to include in tonight's presentation. The Public Employee Pension Reform Act, PEPRA, requires the adoption of a publicly available salary schedule, which we've included in your packet tonight. Additionally, legislation, SB 1436, requires a call out of all executive compensation, and an adoption of a salary schedule is necessary as well. The next slide shows the requirements of the executive compensation schedule. So next slide, please. And so here's a listing of all of our executive salaries. Next slide, please. So now that I've shared the highlights of this year's budget, I'd like to make some important acknowledgments, beginning with the Vacaville community. We are very, very grateful to the citizens of Vacaville for the passage of Measure M, which first occurred in 2012, and then subsequently with the extension in 2016. As the community and the council are aware, Measure M provides locally controlled funding to preserve essential services that protect safety and the quality of life in Vacaville. It also allows for new reinvestment into the community through new projects, programs, and services, as evidenced by this year's investment of over $9 million in our parks and other programs. And finally, it provides additional reserves for general fund if needed for economic crisis like we had last year. I'd also like to thank the community for their patience and support during the past year, because we did have to shut things down. So we weren't as aggressive with our spending, but that goes along the lines with our cautious and strategic approach. But again, this year we're coming out strong with the recommitment and reinvestment into the community. Next slide, please. Of course, I'd like to thank the City Council for their leadership by establishing financial policies and practices to create the general fund reserves, to create strategic investment into the organization and the community, and for your support for needed and deliberate augmentation requests. Those specifically strengthen our service delivery to the council, citizens, and to the organization. And also for your vision. Last year, we brought forward the city's strategic plan with its goals and initiatives. And we also presented the new council with new implementation strategies that you adopted and prioritized for this upcoming fiscal year. And as a result of those priorities, we have been able to establish this budget that reflects those priorities for the upcoming year. Next slide, please. And of course, I need to acknowledge all department heads and all of our city staff for their high level of collaborative involvement and contributions. We couldn't have done it without them, and I'm very grateful for their commitment to the bigger picture and making sacrifices where we need to be consistent with the council's goals and priorities this year. And last of all, but not least, to our budget team. Dawn Leonardini, the assistant city manager, who has prepared her last and final budget. Ken Matsumiya, our finance director. Leslie Hoover, our budget manager. John Clett, our budget analyst. And Krista Groner, our executive assistant. I'd like to thank them for all of their tireless work on preparing this budget under some very extreme challenging circumstances associated with the COVID pandemic. I'm very pleased and proud of this budget and all their work. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we present this for your consideration and approval, we will continue to make quarterly fiscal updates to keep the council updated and allow the community to track progress and make adjustments on the budget as needed. This will coincide with our quarterly updates on the city strategic plan as well, to make sure that the strategic plan and the budget are in alignment with one another. We will also be coming back to the council soon with a future discussion for direction on the American Rescue Plan Act, probably in September or so. Next slide. So with all of that, we have 4 resolutions for the council to approve tonight before you on this slide. And I would like to again thank the council for your consideration tonight. We're very excited about this proactive budget, and we can't wait to get started. So with that, myself and our budget team are happy to answer any questions. Next slide, please. Thank you.
I'm going to open it up to public comment. I see no public comment. I'm going to close public comment, bring it back to council. I have Councilmember Silva. Go ahead, Silva.
Hey, just real quick, just want to thank staff, and thank you, Aaron, for helping elaborate and explain, a lot of other details. So, a lot of us brought up other projects that may have been expressed or interested by the public, and those things are constantly ongoing, constantly evaluated. So while it may not be in this particular budget, I'm very excited to see the potential, assuming that it passes, that how the council is committed towards constantly continuing looking at how we can reinvest in our community and making it a pretty awesome place for all of us. So thank you all.
Silva, do you want to make the motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve the budget.
I'll second it.
Roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Mayor Willett?
Aye. Move to item 10C, Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Council. This next item is a resolution adopting the appropriation spending limit for the upcoming fiscal year. Sherry Enos, our financial analyst, will make a report.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. This is actually Ken Motsney, the Director of Finance. I'll be doing the presentation. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. The following item on the appropriation spending limit is an annual item that is normally on consent, but with this being the first year, a majority of the council has seen this. We've included it under business so that we can provide a brief presentation on the item. Next slide, please. So some background to start. The GAN limit was approved by state voters in 1979, a little over a year after Prop 13, also known as the Property Tax Initiative, was passed by voters. The concern of voters at the time was that the state would increase other taxes to compensate for the reduction in the property tax revenues that were lost due to Prop 13. The purpose of the GAN limit is to cap state and local government spending by an annual increase factor based on changes in inflation and population. The limit only applies to the spending of revenues defined as proceeds of taxes. So examples would be property tax, sales tax, or our TOT, transient occupancy tax, also known as the hotel tax. Governments may not appropriate or budget any revenues in excess of the GAN limit, and any funds collected over the limit during a 2-year period must be returned to taxpayers through a reduction of tax rates or fees. And with all that being said, Vacaville, like a majority of the other governments in the state, is well below the limit. Next slide, please. So the following slide explains the process in putting the calculation together and getting the spending limit adopted. So in May, the State Department of Finance provides cities with the price factor and population information so that we can calculate the spending limit. And then staff completes the calculation using a template provided by the League of California Cities. In June, the appropriation limit for the upcoming fiscal year is adopted by council, which is what tonight's item is. And then for fiscal year 22, the spending limit is over 277 million, and the city is at 28% of the limit, which means that Vacaville's spending of revenues related to tax is below the state's allowable max. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, this is very common. I remember seeing a survey a couple of years ago that had the statewide average being about the mid 30% range. And then finally, the calculation is reviewed annually by the city's independent auditors for accuracy and compliance. Next slide, please. So tonight's recommendation is to adopt the spending limit for the upcoming fiscal year in compliance with Article 13B of the state constitution. Next slide, please. And that concludes the presentation. Be happy to take any questions.
I'll open it up to public comment. Seeing no public comment, I'll close public comment, bring it back for motion.
De Silva, motion to pass the resolution.
Thank you.
Stockton, I second.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie?
Yes.
Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Mayor Roulette?
Aye. Okay, we will move on to item 10D. We have Fire Chief Chris Conception with us tonight.
Good evening, Mayor.
Chief, with us? Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. Tonight, I am going to present to you what we've done or what the city has done as far as prepare for the 2021 fire season. So next slide, please, Crystal. Just as a reminder, the reason that this is so much on our mind is because of the 2020 fire season, and that it was a record-setting year in California. It was a record number of acres that burned, 4.2 million acres. And the fire that really hit home for us was the LNU Lightning Complex fire. It started on August 17th, and it was not officially declared extinguished until October 2nd of 2020. So talking about 6 or 7 week time period where it burned 363,220 acres. Locally here, it was actually almost 300 homes that were damaged and destroyed in rural Vacaville and in unincorporated Solano County, and also resulted, unfortunately, in 2 deaths locally. In Vacaville, at one time, there were nearly 7,000 homes, around 21,000 residents that were evacuated. Our Emergency Operations Center was activated for a total of 4 days from August 18th to 21st of last year. Next slide, please. Now, I gave this presentation last year after the fire as kind of an overview or an after-action review of the LNU Lightning Complex fire and how it affected the city and the challenges and what worked well for us. But that was before most of this current council was seated. So just to remind everyone, the challenges that we faced during the LNU Lightning Complex, and I'm talking specifically for the city of Vacaville, was communications. We were just a small part of a very large incident that was ongoing, and it was spreading very quickly. And so we had some communications challenges with the incident command. So we weren't quite sure where we fit into the overall incident as far as the LNU lightning complex incident was concerned. And also that fire, I believe, was the 22nd out of 23 major fires that were burning in the state. So fire resources were spread way thin. In fact, we had 12 of our firefighters out at the time, helping some in Southern California and some others at another major fire in Northern California. So there was difficulty in getting enough resources into the fight as far as the LNU is concerned. There were several things that worked really well here in the city. We did have good communication with the command staff of Fairfield Fire, as well as with command staff of our command staff that was actually out in the county that was helping the county fire districts with their firefight, and they were they had eyes on the fire, so they were able to tell us where they thought the fire was going to hit us first, and so that helped me with our and my deputy chief with determining what evacuation zones we needed to do and what neighborhoods we need to evacuate very quickly. And so that worked really well. And then also the coordination between Vacaville PD, the fire, as well as dispatch probably could not have gone any better. So as far as going door to door and getting everyone evacuated in a timely manner, that probably went about as well as could be. And then it really, the fire, the way it hit the edge of the city and really kind of stopped right there, really showed the value of our aggressive weed abate, our annual weed abatement program, as well as the fact that we insist on defensible space out in the urban interface area. We did learn quite a few lessons, and these are things that we're going to take with us and are helping us as far as our preparation are concerned. Notifications. Some of our residents were unaware of evacuation orders, so we've got to improve on that. Our GIS services, the maps that we were putting out, we need to improve on that. And then also public education outreach as far as wildfire preparedness. We need to improve on that, and what to do in cases of evacuation are needed. Next slide, please, Chris. So what does the 2021 fire season look like? Well, it promises to be another tough fire season for the firefighters. We've had a warmer spring, and we've had some really high triple-digit temperatures already this year. We know that there's been a reduced snowpack, and then because of the warmer temperatures, there's been earlier snow melt. There's been a lack of rain, and these numbers are directly from the CAL FIRE website. You look at this, they were just updated yesterday, so I don't have the most recent numbers, but they're still falling in line. But if you look at the number of fires that they had in a record-setting year from January 1st to June 13th was 2,356 fires, but already in 2021, they've had 2,977 fires. Then you compare that with their 5-year average of only 1,852 fires. So it's already been much more active this year. And then also they are saying that the length of fire season is estimated to have increased by 75 days. That's a full 2.5 months more of fire season than we normally are used to in a regular or usual year. And the length of fire season is determined by temperatures, and the moistures, or the humidity, as well as the amount of moisture that's in the fuels. And so the fuels have dried out much earlier. Vegetation's dried out much earlier this year as compared to other years. In fact, they're saying that in April of this year, the fuels were in what they call their July, August condition, which would mean that they're at their driest. So we are in for another tough fire season, unfortunately. Next slide, please, Crystal. So we've been busy trying to prepare, and so breaking it down to what we've done here in the city. We've made some EOC improvements. We've made some public notification improvements. We're really on an aggressive campaign as far as public outreach and education. We're improving the defensible space around the city, and then clearing the vegetation from high-risk properties. I'm going to let Public Works, and we've been working real closely with Public Works, and they've been doing a great job of that. I'm going to let them talk about that. Our weed abatement program is going really well. And then I'll tell you about a couple of things that we're doing that that maybe won't help us this year, but will help us for the future years. Next slide, please. So starting off with EOC improvements, so there's some IT improvements. So they've already taken from the LNU Lightning Complex. We've improved the Zoom capabilities. We realized that we need to make better use of that. And then also we're in the process of working with using some money that I had left over in the fire department budget, and process of purchasing a cache of iPads specifically to be used in the EOC during the activations. And then one of the things that we'll be doing anytime we have an incident is we've committed to ordering a GIS specialist to respond to the EOC immediately, so that we can put out better maps when we have incidents like this again. And then our emergency operations plan for the city, we're in the final stages of updating that, obviously we will do a public outreach, maybe do a town hall meeting to educate the public on what that emergency operation plan looks like, and get their feedback before that's adopted by the council. Next slide, please. On the public notification front, we're working, PD, fire, and dispatch, we're working to identify potential solutions. And this is kind of counterintuitive in that, with all the improvements there has been in technology, technology is really kind of hurting us in this area. And the reason being, it used to be that we used to be able to do a reverse 911. That's when people had landline phones, a real, dial phone in their house that, that normally wasn't silenced. And we could be very specific as far as who we notified in case of evacuation. Well, less than half of the households now have a landline, and it continues to decrease on a daily basis, and more people have cell phones and are relying solely on cell phones. So we are using Alert Solano and Nixle, both which were used during the LNU Lightning Complex fire, but it had its challenges. And the reason it had its challenges was because of the fact that both of these are opt-in programs. So what we need to do is we need to do much more aggressive outreach in educating our public on the importance of being signed up for these two systems, or these two programs, to make sure that they are notified anytime that there's an evacuation, and they can get updates on emergencies and disasters that are happening in the city. And then we're also looking at some of the solutions that don't rely on technology. I mean, is there something that, how can we better go door to door, and how can we better coordinate as far as our evacuation efforts are concerned? And then also potentially high-low sirens. It's the European siren that some cities have been adopting, some jurisdictions have been adopting to signify that there's an evacuation going on, so that it can hopefully wake up the residents. So those are some of the things that we are working on as far as public notification. And then also, again, towards public notification and updates, that GIS specialist being ordered immediately to the EOC to help us with more specific maps that are more accurate will help us in future incidents. Next slide, please. On the public outreach and education front, we have adopted the Ready, Set, Go wildfire preparedness program. This is a education program that was started in Southern California between Orange County fire and Ventura County fire back in 2009 after some devastating fires in 2008. And it educates the public on how to harden their home against in the event of wildfire. Also, the importance of defensible space and how to maintain that. Teaches residents how to prepare for evacuations and how to prepare their home and their properties in the event that they have to evacuate, and then tells them or educates them they really have to be aware of the notifications and be ready to go at a moment's notice in case there's an evacuation. So we have adopted that program, and our fire safety coordinator here in the fire department is putting out messaging on social media, creating flyers, and now that the restrictions with COVID have diminished, we'll start doing in-person education programs as well. And next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Brian McLean from Public Works to talk about some of the defensible space and some of the programs they've been working to help us defend against wildfire. Brian?
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. Just going to go through a couple of projects that Public Works has recently completed in our preparations for the upcoming fire season. The first one is the North Alamo Fire Hardening Project. Next slide. This project site is located adjacent to the city's 2 detention basins at Encinosa Creek, that's near Foothill Drive, and abuts a large portion of the North Alamo subdivision. And although we annually utilize cattle grazing, mechanical weed eating, and tractor disking in this area, we wanted to improve the site to provide the fire department a more defensible space and a clear fire break. And you can see from these 2 photos, the photo on the left, in areas where the topography allowed, we utilized base rock spread across at least a 10-foot section between the detention basin and the residential fencing, which provides a good fire break. And then on the photo on the right, where the topography was more challenging, we utilized a tractor with a rented rototiller attachment to produce the same benefit as our disking program without causing the damage that disking could do close to the residential fencing. Next slide. The second project is the North Alamo tree crown lifting and debris removal. Back in April, staff brought to council this project, which was approved. The site consists of approximately 3 acres, which is heavily wooded and again directly adjacent to the residential subdivision right there at Dunsmuir Street. Next slide. As you can see from the slide on the left, the site was overgrown and heavily wooded with volunteer trees and various tree debris spread across the entire site. You literally could not see from one end of the property of that 3 acres to the other side. It was so overgrown. In the photo on the right, this represents the results of a 2-week effort, which happened in May of this just last month, by our contractor, which involved limbing up the canopy and clearing the floor debris and generally thinning out that overgrowth. Over 80 tons of green waste, which could have been potential fire fuel, were removed from the site. I'll turn it back to the chief.
Thank you, Brian. Next slide, please, Crystal. So happy to report that our weed abatement program is going full bore right now, and we've sent letters to nearly 800 properties in April. Code enforcement has been out inspecting, which began in June 1st. So far, they have inspected all of the properties. They've had to issue, out of the nearly 800 properties, they've only had to issue about 40 abatement notices as of today that they notified me. And then if those 40 properties don't get cleared out, we will start issuing inspection warrants as necessary. So that program is going well again this year. And hopefully we won't have to issue any inspection warrants, and everybody will comply by July 1st as needed. Next slide, please. So those are all the efforts that will affect the 2021 fire season, but we are looking out further into the future. Lagoon Valley, where that project starting, that does have a significant fire history, especially recently, 2015, I believe, before I got here, there was a fire that started around there in the hills around there. Started by fireworks, and then also there was the Nelson fire, I believe, which was in 2018, and then the LNU Lightning Complex fire crossed I-80 and burned in Lagoon Valley. So we're working with a developer to address the safety concerns there, and we want to make sure that there's adequate vehicle access for two purposes. One is to make sure that there's enough access for the residents to evacuate as needed, as well as adequate access for the emergency vehicles to go into the area as needed to fight fire. We're taking a very careful look at the evacuation routes and making sure that that whole entire neighborhood and development can be evacuated if necessary in a timely manner. And then obviously the defensibles working with the developer to ensure that the defensible space that is required, more than what is required, is there, just so that we can ensure that neighborhood is safe. And then working with the developer even during construction to make sure that there's an adequate water supply in case there's a fire even during construction. Next slide, please. And then as a result of the devastating fires last year, CAL FIRE, there are some grants that are available. So we're doing two things. One is we're participating in a county application for a community wildfire preparedness grant, and that'll the Solano County has started a Solano County Fire Safe Council. There's the existing Green Valley Fire Safe Council, and so that's so they're going to do a county wide plan, and hopefully and not hopefully, we will participate in that grant, and hopefully they'll get that. And then we actually the city applied for our own fire prevention grant, and that grant, we're hoping to get some equipment that'll help with our annual weed abatement program for the city properties, also help us do better public outreach and education. And then as far as doing more projects like Brian had just talked about, as far as the defensible space, and then weed abatement, and hope. And the reason that there's the picture of the goat there is they're very good at grazing down to mineral earth. And so we're hoping with the grant that we'll able to start using goats to do some of our weed abatement on some of the city properties. So those are it won't necessarily affect the fire preparation or wildfire preparation for this year, but for future years, hopefully it'll help us out. And that completes my presentation. Just to show you some of the things that we've been doing and that we are getting ready for the 2021 fire season. And at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions if any of you have any.
I'm going to open it up to public comment. I see no public comment. I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the council for any comments. I do have Councilmember Silva.
Thanks, Chief. Just real quick, do we have an estimated timetable when we would start being able to communicate out the different communication methods that folks should be signing up for?
Well, that is an ongoing effort. I mean, those are the two things that the Alert Solano. I encourage everyone to go to alertsolano.com and sign up for Alert Solano. And That will notify you of any emergencies. We provide updates, incident updates through Alert Solano, and they can reach you by phone, by email, by any numerous ways. I know that anytime I've signed up like 3 or 4 methods for me, I get repeat messages on any emergency. So I encourage the community to get online as quickly as possible at alertsolano.com and sign up now.
And then, is there maybe a social media post that we can help share on behalf of us as council members within our networks?
Yeah, we routinely on a regular basis will do that through the first and foremost the fire department Facebook page, as well as on the city Facebook page. But we'll put one out soon, and then I'll notify you of that so that you can share it.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. That's all the comments. Thank you very much, Chief. I believe you're going to be with us for the next item 10E. So go ahead and start that one, please.
Yes, sir. All right. So I'm hoping that this is the final COVID update that I'm going to be giving you after 15 months of it. So next slide, please, Crystal. So the latest numbers as far as California, we're at 3.7 million cases, 62,701 deaths, and a 7-day positivity of 1%. There has been a little bit of an increase, but not an appreciable increase, and nothing really to be too concerned about. In Solano County, 33,762 cases, 142 active cases. There are 9 currently, although the number of active cases increased over the last 2 weeks, there are fewer people that are hospitalized, so that's been good. And there have been no deaths in the last 2 weeks. The 7-day positivity is at 1.2%, according to this is from the state website. It's a slight increase, but again, nothing to be concerned about. In Vacaville, 876 cases, an increase of 79 cases over the last 2 weeks. Next slide, please. So California, June 15th was the reopening where the restaurants were able to go full capacity. The mask mandates essentially went away. It was for if anyone has been vaccinated, they don't have to wear a mask. The social distancing rules went away. So it's just those that are not vaccinated yet, they have to self-test and they have to wear a mask. And then on June 17th, Cal OSHA met and they matched essentially the lifted restrictions that the CDPH did. And so in the workplace, and we were able to relax some of those restrictions here in the workplace. And so it's the same thing. It's those that have been vaccinated, we can start going back to in-person meetings, and those that have been vaccinated don't have to wear a mask, and those that have not been vaccinated yet have to continue to wear a mask. In California, and this is, I need to make this clarification. The last time I had said 40,000 or 40 million, some had been vaccinated, but obviously that's more than the population of California. So I need to clarify that 40.6 million number is the number of doses that have been given. It's actually been, according to the latest information, 57.2% of Californians are fully vaccinated and protected from COVID. In Solano County, 65% have at least one dose, and 53% of the population is completely vaccinated. I'm happy to report that after 15 months, our city COVID team is going to have one final meeting to really do an incident closeout. We had been meeting regularly since March 13th. I still remember getting the call that schools were going to be closed and that we needed to have an emergency meetings in 2020. So since then, we've been meeting regularly. I want to thank my counterparts that have helped during that 15 months. There have been some tough decisions that have had to make, but had the community's best interest in mind the entire time. And then one of the final decisions that, or one of the final recommendations that we are making as a COVID team is that because of the lifted restrictions, we could potentially go back to in-person council meetings beginning July 27th, which is I believe your next regular police scheduled meeting. Next slide, please, Crystal. I do want to give a shout out. I know COVID was tough for everybody, but a bright light, a positive thing that happened. Parks and Rec did put in the volunteers or this program in for a community service award, and they were awarded this, the Senior Help Line Hot Meal volunteers. If you see the numbers there were 60 dedicated volunteers to the program. They delivered a total of 7,820 hot meals, 1,730 grocery runs, but in addition to those deliveries, they also helped schedule vaccine appointments and coordinating with the county to provide transportation. They did referrals to in-home support services, referrals to Faith in Action for transportation services, worked with the AARP to provide on-site tax preparation during the pandemic, and general household support to the seniors that were having some home maintenance issues. So there was quite a bit that was done by the volunteers. So that was just a real positive out of just a dreary pandemic. And then as far as the funding, I'd like to thank the city council. There's $62,600 from in city support. 27,000 of that, 27,600 was COVID relief funding, and then 35,000 came from general fund. And then I'd like to thank everyone that personally donated, because there was $26,000 in community donations that not only helped our seniors, but also supported our 22 of our local restaurants during the pandemic when business was bad. So again, a bright light during a very bad situation. Just wanted to let everyone know about that. And next slide, please. That completes my presentation. And unless you have any questions, I'm done.
Open up public comment first. I see no public comment. I'll close public comment. Look for comment on council. I see none. Thank you very much, Chief. Do appreciate it. Looking forward to getting up and running 100% again. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, number 11.
Thank you, Mayor. I have no comments tonight. Thank you.
Item 12, reports to City Council. Anybody from the City Council want to say anything?
Have some.
Okay. Councilmember Silva, go ahead.
Just real quick, now that we have our full council, I'd like to make a motion to, at some point, bring back our council policy on commission appointments.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So, Mayor, just as a reminder, anytime we get a motion to bring anything back to the council, we need a second and a vote.
No, I understand. I just, I was thrown off by that one. Do we have a second for that?
I will second that. This is Sullivan. And I actually also wanted to talk about appointments to special work groups. I don't know if that's included in this policy or if that's somewhere else, but I'd like to talk about that as well.
Sure. It's a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
Councilmember Wiley?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton?
Yes.
Councilmember Ritchie,
Yes.
Councilmember Silva,
Yes.
Mayor Willett.
Yes. Okay, we still have closed session, so we're going to adjourn the meeting, but head back into closed session if we have anything to report, which I don't think we will. But if we do, we'll bring it back out to the Zoom meeting. So good night, Vacaville.